is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Tuesday, June 10th, 2025. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, 700 Marines deployed to the foreign land of Los Angeles against the LAPD wishes, as Trump is looking to see what he can get away with. Meanwhile, National Guard troops already deployed to LA, sleeping on floors as Hegseth shows evil and incompetent, not mutually exclusive. Speaking of Hegseth, he's testifying today in Congress, has a couple of other committees to visit this week as well. Speaking of the House is revising the reconciliation bill without a vote so that it passes the parliamentarians' bird rules in the Senate. Trump regime asks SCOTUS to neutralize the Convention Against Torture.
Oh, we're back, baby. Bush era.
I mean,
it's all coming together.
This is actually more about immigration, but still. Secretary of Anti-Vax, RFK Jr., fires the entire CDC vaccine panel experts, despite his promise in nomination hearings to not do so. Donald Trump has all but eliminated the Department of Justice's political corruption unit. And Justice KBJ warns that the Supreme Court of the United States is manipulating its rules to benefit Donald Trump. Good news, two new polls show Mamdani gaining on Cuomo in the New York mayor's race.
Wow. I don't know what that noise was.
I'm not sure either.
It's excitement.
I got to turn down the earphones. New study in Pediatric Journal of American Medical Association shows that relaxation of gun control laws leads to more pediatric deaths.
That's a shocker.
And in what could turn out to be pretty good news, the Genius Act has stalled in the Senate. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us. It is
Newsday Tuesday.
Newsday Tuesday,
Hello,
and
hello.
is in fact pretty newsy.
Lots of news.
And Creof Lawlader says, Happy Newsday Tuesday, folks. Today's primary day in New Jersey. I voted for Baraka for governor and Emma Vigeland for Monmouth County Sheriff.
Thank you.
Did not realize that
I hope I get elected.
that would have been, if elected, you will accept.
I will accept.
Right? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Also, I think it's Creflo Dollar. Who was that?
The prosperity gospel guy.
Oh, right.
Wait,
right.
what?
Right.
Creflo Dollar.
He was a prosperity gospel pastor.
I don't know what.
From
is
your
it?
time.
That's the name of the IMer.
Oh. I had no idea. I don't pay attention to the IMs.
Okay,
I just
well,
read them off.
I just was trying to think, like,
I had no idea what
what's
this
that
was a reference to, and I was like wondering if I had completely forgotten this whole thing.
Well,
I mean, it's possible.
it was a funny story from like 10 years ago.
I don't remember that guy. But nevertheless, things were a little bit quieter in Los Angeles, at least in terms of the protests, not in terms of ICE raiding schools. arresting people at courts, whatnot. I mean, they are ongoing. We have more military coming in, despite the fact that California is now suing the federal government for its federalization of the National Guard. Here is Pete Hegseth. He is at the House Oversight Subcommittee on Defense. This is just a coincidence. I mean, he was due to testify in front of these committee hearings, both this and I believe in part because of the budget stuff that they're working on, but also just sort of in the due course of things. He's going to be talking to a couple other committees this week.
This is the second time this has happened. Don't you remember when Tulsi Gabbard was in front of it was a coincidental hearing, and that's when Signalgate had just broken, I believe?
Yes. Now, we don't have any clips of Hegseth being asked yet about his own Signalgate. Mm-hmm. And then the subsequent NSA spying gate that was associated in who they fired for supposedly leaking about his use of Signal. And it turns out that there was an internal lie about whether they had been wiretapped. We will have those clips for you likely tomorrow. In the meantime, here is Hegseth explaining the circumstance where he feels he can send in the military under what circumstances. And understand, people have been saying this for a long time. This is playing out very much like the, people who have been concerned about Trump's authoritarianism and fascism said. I mean, really, since the day that Pete Hegseth was nominated, people said the reason why Trump is doing this is because Esper in his first term and the generals were reluctant to put military on the streets in the United States to attack civilians. And the other piece of speculation was that this is the way they were going to do this. They were going to go in, they were going to do mass roundups of people, of undocumented immigrants, of documented immigrants, of immigrants who are in the process of seeking documentation, people who have been in this country for, in some instances, decades, a whole raft of people who are not citizens. Now, citizens have been swept up because they made the mistake of going around being all Latino.
Right.
But, and not only citizens of this country, but people who are visiting were accidentally, because they also made the mistake. I saw this in New York just the other day, making the mistake of speaking Spanish and looking Latino can get you swept up by by ICE
in New York City.
In New York City,
this level of bigotry is just really horrible, and I think
Hysteria.
about all our Latino friends, brothers, and sisters who walk around with fear or walk around with their papers or can't speak in Spanish in public. It's disgusting what this country is doing to you right now.
Now, to be fair, they've also rolled up a couple of white immigrants. So, they're
Middle Eastern immigrants also
Middle Eastern,
being targeted.
oh yes. I mean, of course. I mean, everybody who's brown is definitely high on the list, but they have rolled up a couple of, I think, of European immigrants, et cetera. But here's Pete Hegseth trying to justify the military being deployed. And again, this is without the ask of any California officials, not the governor, not the mayor of LA, not the police commissioner of LA. In fact, they're suing to have them leave, whether it's the federalization of the National Guard or the Marines.
This is Pete Hegseth with Pete Aguilar of California.
exactly what we're doing, and we're proud to do it. We're proud to do it.
10 U.S.C. of the U.S. Code 12406 as a legal basis that the president used cites 3 examples and circumstances for the Guard: invasion by a foreign nation, rebellion or dangerous rebellion against the authority of the government of the United States, or the president is unable with regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. Which authority is triggered here to justify the use?
I don't know. You just read it yourself, and people can listen themselves, but it sounds like all 3 to me. If you've got millions of illegals and you don't know where they're coming from, they're waving flags from foreign countries and assaulting police officers and law enforcement officers.
All right, pause it. Go back. I want people to listen to these three things that he's saying, have been these 3 elements of the threshold that have supposedly been surpassed. Invasion by a foreign nation. I mean, we know what an invasion is. We know what a foreign nation is. It's a nation, right?
Yeah.
Like, we used to have a problem. We used to have a fear in this country of non-state actors. Terrorists who would attack who were non-state actors. That didn't mean that they didn't have a nationality. It meant that they were acting on their own. So there was a time in this country where we understood that you could be from a country, but not be the country.
Right.
When it came to national security. Apparently, that's no longer the case.
But California used to be part of Mexico, so actually, if you think about it, it's been invaded since it's existed.
I mean, that's all true. But those folks who have come from Mexico, or parents who had come from Mexico, or grandparents who had come from Mexico, represent an invasion by Mexico no more than I represent an invasion of Vilnius, Lithuania, of this country.
I'm invading from Finland and Norway. We're coming for you, folks.
And you guys are known for this.
Oh, my gosh. We have a history. It's in our DNA. It's the whole Viking thing. I mean, you should measure my skull, see if I'm eligible for deportation.
A rebellion against the government.
Right.
The LAPD represent the Los Angeles government. We have heard from the mayor of Los Angeles. We have heard from the commissioner of the LAPD. We have heard from the governor of California. If they were not aware of a rebellion against them, maybe there's no rebellion. And the president unable with regular forces to execute the laws, 50, 75 people have been arrested by the LAPD for violent acts during the protest. In some instances, not even violent acts, just, standing in front of a car, which is a non-violent act, unless you're getting hit by the car, which we've seen. But let's hear these again, because Hexas says all 3.
That the president used cites 3 examples and circumstances for the Guard: invasion by a foreign nation, rebellion or dangerous rebellion against the authority of the government of the United States, or the president is unable with regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. Which authority is triggered here to justify the use?
I don't know. You just read it yourself, and people can listen themselves, but it sounds like all 3 to me. If you've got millions of illegals and you don't know where they're coming from, they're waving flags from foreign countries and assaulting police officers and law enforcement officers.
Pause it. I'm sorry again. Who are the millions of illegals waving flags? Is that what we're supposed to believe? Is that there's been millions of people on the street in LA and that they're all illegals?
I mean, if you're waving an Israel flag, I'm imagining that this applies to you, right? You can't be waving foreign flags in the United States of America.
Do people wave the Israeli flag in New York? Is that
in New York? I've seen a few.
I'm
going to report them to ICE.
I'm being facetious.
I know.
Go ahead.
I mean, Irish flags, Italian flags, all around here.
Confederate flags, some places.
Yeah, good point.
Here to justify the use.
I don't know. You just read it yourself, and people can listen themselves, but it sounds like all three to me. If you've got millions of illegals and you don't know where they're coming from, they're waving flags from foreign countries and assaulting police officers and law enforcement officers. That's the problem.
The laws of the United States.
No, the governor of California is unable to execute the laws of the United States.
The president, you said all
three apply. The
governor
of the California has failed to protect his people, along with the mayor of Los Angeles, and so President Trump has said he will protect our agents, and our Guard and Marines are proud to do it.
The law also says, Mr. Secretary, that the orders for these purposes shall be issued through governors of the states.
You and I both know that President Trump has all the authorities necessary, and thankfully he's willing to do it on behalf of the citizens of Los Angeles, on behalf of our ICE agents, and behalf of our country.
We've also
got him there. I mean, that wasn't the question where he said that the governor is unable to faithfully execute the laws. That's not the threshold. That's what applies to the president. That's supposed to be able to give him this authority. There's just like, there's some confusion a little bit about the laws that are being used here, and I just want people to be clear about this. They haven't yet invoked the Insurrection Act, which seems to be something that they're like openly teasing, but it's more of like a break glass in case of an emergency situation, because that would supersede the Comitatus Act that we spoke about yesterday, which was like a Reconstruction era law that prevented the United States like military from federal military force from doing civilian law enforcement. But you can supersede that if you are going to invoke the Insurrection Act. Now, that would have applied to the active duty troops that Hegseth had tweeted out that they were going to deploy. If Trump invoked this thing called 10 USC 12406, that allows him to federalize the Guard, and typically you ask for the input of the governor, but you don't have to, as LBJ did in 1965 when he was trying to protect civil rights marchers. So Trump did it for the first time since then, but he hasn't gone all the way to invoke the Insurrection Act, which would be a huge escalation and also would be difficult for them legally because they have to prove that there's an invasion and this is wartime for him to execute the Insurrection Act.
And my understanding is, and I'm not sure that what the specifics were in which LBJ under that authority federalized the National Guard to protect the marchers, or as much as federal authorities who were with the marchers. Because my understanding is that under that the law you cited, the federal troops can only protect federal buildings. Yes. Or federal authorities who are attempting to do their work. So theoretically, the National Guard federalized could accompany ICE in this instance in their pursuit of undocumented immigrants. That's what that law allows it to do. So, and that's where we're at. Yeah. And so, but
it's just such a narrow statute compared to like what the scale of what they're speaking about. They haven't done that yet.
Well, they're purposely trying to conflate the things.
Yes.
And even sending 700 Marines, where here's this picture of the National Guard. They completely were unprepared for the National Guard, the 2,000 National Guards people that they deployed. They're sleeping outside under nothing. They're sleeping in just these rooms. They have no food. They have no supplies. And the idea that they needed to deploy another 700 Marines, ostensibly because they couldn't deploy other National Guardsmen quick enough, when there is nothing for these National Guardsmen to do at this point. Like, the speculation is like, what federal buildings remain that the Marines can protect? And here's the other thing. And I've heard this now from, we had an emailer who is, maybe I'll read this when we come back. But also a piece written by David Day and some on the ground reporting he did yesterday. We're talking about essentially a 5-block radius in Los Angeles which in a place that is so sprawling, where like 20 minutes is, you can do a trip of 20 minutes like 12 times in LA, going from one end to the other, essentially. This is not a situation where like the entire city has to be on lockdown. Yesterday I said, 80% of LA isn't even aware of what's going on at any given moment because it's so removed. And this emailer corrected me and said, and despite the fact disagreeing with some of the other stuff that we had to say, 98% of LA has no idea what's going on at any given time. It's so isolated.
But the reason you all know about it, and you've probably seen the same image over and over again when you open your phone, is that the new corporate media in our lives that's affecting the way that we see the world is social media. We know from reporting with Cambridge Analytica and other things that these algorithms that Facebook, Meta, Instagram, right, Twitter now too, definitely use are there to incite outrage or strong reactions, and political content does well, especially if it's inflammatory on the way that these algorithms are designed. So there is like this local newsification of our social media right now that is contributing to the reactionary moment that we're in. And these tech oligarchs that are in bed with the Trump administration are a part of crafting their media companies, which is what they are at this point, to favor the narratives that benefit the candidates that they like. And there should be way more awareness about what is being shown to you and what isn't. It's the same almost in terms of like how people are absorbing it as editorial discretion on other news networks.
Why are these soldiers here? Because so ICE can raid a Home Depot for people who are just trying to, I don't know, put some tiling in, and the community might get upset at them for that. We need to have troops on the ground for that. This entire thing is a Nazi-like lie to put people's attention on immigrants when everyone's lives have been destroyed by banks and capitalists and the investment class. Like, it's so transparent. We've already lived through this in world history. Why is this not so obvious to people?
I mean, a decent amount of Trump voters voted to round up all immigrants. And
right,
that's what Stephen Miller's plan has always been. And part of the way that they will need to do that, if they're going to do that, is to have troops on the ground in every city. And you do not get to there from here without going through this.
And how do you get to there? How do you sell the public on getting to there? You call these people who are your neighbors, who look at Home Depot looking for work, who are other Americans. They're Americans too. You make them into criminals. You demonize them. And that's part of what the tech right is doing in concert with the administration. And we should be talking about it, I think, a little bit more.
We got to take a break, read some words from our sponsors, and then we will talk more about these things and more. Father's Day is this weekend, folks. Well, so why don't you tell my kids that? Instead of a pair of New Balances, get your dad something he's going to love. Some sticky, dank hemp flour from Sunset Lake CBD. If your dad waxes poetic about the good old days of wacky tobacco, as it were, he'll love hemp flour. It only contains a little bit of THC, which means all of the relaxation with none of the freak out that we used to have back in the day.
Right.
Right now, when you shop with the code DADGRASS, one word, you can save 40% on all of Sunset Lake's hemp flour products. Plus, they'll ship them directly to your dad's door. Or hey, if your dad's a Trumper and you need a little help getting through a conversation with him, get yourself some hemp flour.
Good advice.
Yep. For this dad, I will occasionally have a pre-roll after I have like a meal. You know, back in the day, I was a bit of a smoker of a bunch of different things. And after a meal, one might do that. I'm less inclined these days just because, well, I mean, you know, the THC is stronger than it was when I was a kid.
It's no joke. Yeah.
And I also, I don't have the opportunity to check out for a couple hours.
Understood.
So I'll have one of the pre-rolls. But also, I understand that sometimes you can take some of this smokables and mix it with other smokables too. They got keef,
nice
they got a bunch of
blend.
other stuff. So check it out. The sale ends June 15th at midnight, so don't wait. Gift your dad something he'll love. Head over to sunsetlakesabadell.com. Use the code DADGRASS for 40% off all smokable hemp flower products. 40% off. This is the time to try it. If you've never tried it, this is the time to try it. See their site for terms and conditions. We'll put the link in the podcast and YouTube descriptions. Also, going online without ExpressVPN is like driving without car insurance. You might be a great driver, but with all the crazy people on the road these days, who would take that risk? There's always been crazy people, let's be honest, on the road. I'd like to thank ExpressVPN for supporting the Majority Report. Here's the deal. Visit expressvpn.com/majority. You can get up to 4 extra months free. Every time you connect to a public network, and you all do, believe me, your online data is not secure. Any hacker on the same network can gain access to and steal your passwords, your bank logins, your credit card details, everything you want to protect. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per person selling personal info on the dark web. ExpressVPN stops hackers from stealing your data by creating a secure encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. Super secure. It would take a hacker with a supercomputer over 1 billion years to get past ExpressVPN's encryption. And you're rarely on a public Wi-Fi for that long.
Right.
1 billion years would be
Very
a
long.
long time.
Yes.
It is super easy to use. You fire up the app, you click one button, you get protected. It works on all your devices, phones, laptops, tablets, and more, so you can stay secure on the go. I use ExpressVPN whenever I'm traveling because, you get into those airports, you get a Wi-Fi.
Right.
In the subway, you got a Wi-Fi. I guess that's traveling. But any place where there's any type of public Wi-Fi, you got to use it. And then I just use it at home more often than not because why wouldn't I? It's so easy. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/majority. That's EXPRESSVPN.com/majority to find out how you can get up to 4 extra months free. expressvpn.com/majority. Okay. Let's get back to Pete Hegseth. Here is Hegseth. Or we should start with, here is a local news report from ABC News 7. Just to give you a sense of like what people are protesting against, why they are getting angry in many instances. The vast majority of the protests have been very peaceful. What's that?
5, yeah.
Yeah, what did I say? Oh, a 5, sorry. The vast majority of the protests have been peaceful. Even if it just means they're peacefully running away from flashbangs and
tear gas.
Peacefully getting hit by a rubber bullet.
But understand, like, imagine your kids are at school and they come home and they say ICE was there looking to talk to first graders or third graders or sixth graders, or they raided the graduation ceremonies. I gotta think, even if you're sort of like a perfectly secure sitting in Westchester County in New York, that there would be some angry response to ICE doing this kind of thing in your neighborhood. Here is ABC News 7.
Growing fear in the LAUSD community after an unusual and disturbing visit. Several federal agents from the Department of Homeland Security showed up at 2 elementary schools this week demanding to talk to students. What happened next has Superintendent Alberto Carvalho praising school workers and demanding answers. Eyewitness News reporter Sophie Flay explains.
What interest should a Homeland Security agent have in a first grader?
On Monday, multiple Homeland Security agents showed up at 2 elementary schools in Los Angeles, according to LAUSD Superintendent Alberto Carvalho. These agents were stopped, questioned, and turned away by principals at Lillian Elementary and Russell Elementary schools, both in the Florence Graham neighborhood.
They wanted access to the students to determine their well-being, based on, according to the agents, the fact that when they entered this country, they entered as unaccompanied minors. It is well known that these students are under the care of relatives.
According to Carvalho, the agents claimed they were not part of immigration and customs enforcement.
They conveyed to both principals that the parents or the legal guardians in charge of these children had provided them authorization for access to these kids in school. That is absolutely, blatantly untrue.
These agents asked specific questions about students ranging from 1st to 6th grade. The superintendent says they arrived in unmarked vehicles and wore casual clothing.
When the principals attempted to write down details about their IDs, they quickly hid their IDs.
All parents from these schools were notified about these incidents. Ahead of the November election, LAUSD staff were trained in protocols to protect students from federal agents showing up at schools.
We wonder if this may happen at more schools, if they simply will ram through. So we are having to really lean on the principals, the workers, the teachers, the clerical workers.
Okay, so we're now asking of our schools that not only do you have to protect from the potential of a mass shooting event, but you have to deal with plainclothes, maybe ICE people, won't show their IDs, show up in unmarked cars. This is happening all across the country. It's happening all across the country. Wearing masks, we don't know.
Yeah.
And now these schools have to deal with this. And here is one of the problems with ICE officials showing up in unmarked cars, sometimes with no license plates. Unmarked cars, in plain clothes, or just wearing something they could have bought at like an Army Navy store, frankly.
Like that guy who picked up Mahmoud Khalil in a freaking Marvel t-shirt.
Or a guy's Ozturk.
But I'm sorry, like you can go right down the street here on Flatbush, 3 blocks down, and buy cop outfits.
Oh,
essentially. And not showing their IDs and wearing masks. And here's what happens. This is a story from Philadelphia.
Okay, this is just video, but I saw this story. We can pull down the... So basically, this is a car repair business. And I think this is the same story, but there's apparently the suspect zip-tied a 50-year-old woman and was
somebody came
robbed.
in posing essentially as an ICE
robbed this like auto repair shop and was posing as ICE. And we're going to see more and more of this.
I don't think this is the first time I've heard of this happening in recent months.
I can't think of a situation that is more primed for predators and people who want to sexually assault children, women, whatever. I can't think of a bigger gift to them. You also know that these resources federally that are going to taking these law enforcement people and putting them towards immigration to meet these insane quotas that Stephen Miller has, that they're having to drop or understaff real investigations into things like human trafficking or like even terrorism, because this is where the administration's priorities are.
Got to research these schools.
There's also reports, and we heard this in February, that Kristi Noem wanted to deputize IRS agents because they're looking for as many federal authorities as they can. If you are an IRS agent or have firsthand knowledge of an IRS agent having to go work for ICE, send us an email at majorityreporters@gmail.com, or get a Proton email. Maybe we got to set up that Signal channel we've been talking about. But here is Gavin Newsom on the deployment of military to L.A. Gavin Newsom, not necessarily my favorite person, but the point is he is the governor of California, and his state is challenging Trump's use of the military in this instance, which is going to be an important precedent to set. And hopefully it'll happen quickly. If you are to believe Ketanji Brown Jackson, Supreme Court Justice, it probably won't move as quickly as some of other things involving Trump. When Trump wants the Supreme Court to act quickly, that shadow docket immediately responds. When anybody else does, it seems to be very, very slow. But
and to your point, though, about how Newsom, not our favorite person, but it's important to have this on the books. The memorandum that Trump put out that basically authorized this did not specify. There have been a number of legal writers who've pointed this out. Did not specify a particular state. Did not just say that this is for California. So this memorandum could be, in theory, used for other states. So it's important that California, given its size and population, stands up in this way.
You think things are now under control?
For the moment, but they're not about to be. He just called up another 2,000 National Guard, so it's now 4,000. And we're getting word that he's looking to operationalize that relationship and advance significantly larger scale ICE operations in partnership and collaboration with the National Guard. We're on the other side now of the red line. And I haven't even mentioned the self-evident major escalation, which is next level. And that is the Secretary of Defense just moments ago tweeting out that he's, quote unquote, deploying 700 active military to Los Angeles. And unless he just done it, I have not seen the Insurrection Act formally advanced, but by definition, this would require the Insurrection Act.
Yeah, I mean, I saw you have now filed suit to protest the federalizing of the California National Guard. These 700 Marines who are apparently being sent to Los Angeles, is there a legal avenue for you to challenge that deployment?
Well, unless he opposes the Insurrection Act, just blatantly unconstitutional. It's not even a close call. And so we're going to immediately try to seek a TRO, an injunction to stop this completely reckless, immoral, yes, but completely illegal and unconstitutional act. And I'll remind folks, this is an act not just against the people here in Los Angeles, against the people here in the state of California, but against Americans all across this country, against the principles of our founding father that did not live and die to watch these authoritarian tendencies in action. And let me be now even more specific. The absurdity of this cannot be understated. There were 2,000 National Guard that were, quote unquote, deployed, of which only 315 actually were mission assigned. 1,700 have no particular role or responsibility. Yesterday, local law enforcement had to protect the National Guard. The additional 2,000 National Guard men and women that President Trump now is redeploying are being taken away. It's the 79th Infantry. These are I know these folks well. You know these folks well. These are the folks, these are the National Guard men and women that have been out there protecting you here in Southern California during the fires, after the fires. We are now taking many of them off assignments on forest management, protecting communities, vulnerable communities against summer and wildfire season. We're removing them from task forces that we've created to deal with fentanyl interdiction. I have 394 National Guard men and women down at the border. I imagine they may even be pulled for this theatrical display of toughness by a president of the United States who's unhinged and has now crossed a red line in this country, and he has nationalized this order. This is not an order against this state. This is an order that can be imposed now all across the United States.
There you have it.
Accurate explanation by Newsom, and also about the concern broadly about this being a testing ground. I think I saw Karen Bass say something similar, and there's many issues with how they've responded to crises, including this one where there's some criticism on the ground about like Karen Bass being weak on this. So this is not to let them off the hook, obviously, but she said that basically it seems like this is a laboratory, what they're doing in California, to see
without a doubt
what they can get away with across the country.
Without a doubt. Let's cue up this one I just put in the IM, because here is Trump. You just heard Gavin Newsom say that 1,700 of the 2,000 are just sitting around, and that the National Guard are actually having to be protected now by the police department.
Right.
They have nothing to do. They have nothing to do under the auspices in which they were sent. And here is Donald Trump claiming that the police couldn't handle it, when in fact the police were the ones who ended up protecting the National Guard. Good.
Engagement. All I want is safety. I just want a safe area. Los Angeles was under siege until we got there. The police were unable to handle it. You can speak to the chief. He said it on television 3 nights ago. He said, this is more than we can handle. They said that. And the LA police, I know a lot of the police in LA, they're good.
That is exactly not what the police chief has said. The police chief has put out written statements saying, we don't need this. Go ahead.
This is more than we can handle. They said that. And the LA police, I know a lot of the police in LA, they're good, they're great people, but they're given instructions not to do this, not to do that. But in this case, they were trying their best. They were not able to handle it. It was out of control. When we got there, and you have to remember, I've been here before, and I went right by every rule, and I waited for governors to say, send in the National Guard. They wouldn't do it. They wouldn't. Engagement. All I want is...
They wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
They wouldn't do it. Like, which is it? They said that they needed the help, or they said they didn't need the help? Incidentally, this is the same guy who, when it comes to FEMA, here, play this clip. This is in the same press conference that Trump had just gave moments ago. He's saying that he needs to send it in despite the fact that the governor, the mayor, and the police chief say we don't need this help. And here he is talking about disaster relief.
Thank you very much. Great job, everybody. So we want to wean off of FEMA, and we want to bring it down to the state level. A little bit like education, we're moving it back to the states. So the governors can handle it. That's why they're governors now. If they can't handle it, they shouldn't be governor. But these governors can handle it, and they'll work in conjunction with other governors. They'll give each other a hand. But
okay, so there it is now. When it comes to a hurricane, a flood, earthquake, tornadoes, you guys got this. Listen,
give each other a hand.
It's just, I mean, contemplate the notion of each of these states. Many of them are red states, of course. Contemplate the notion of each of them having to have a dedicated rescue operations, dedicated emergency workers. And I'm not saying like, the numbers they have now, they obviously have some. But how many do you think come in the wake of a hurricane or massive tornadoes or floods? 2 times the personnel? 3 times? 5 times? What about all the trailers, the specialized trailers? Are states supposed to just sort of maintain these things, buy them all, maintain them, do upkeep, hire people to service them? Of course they won't. Of course they won't.
Well, they would. This is probably Trump trying to push them towards privatization.
Yeah, I mean,
like down in New Orleans, and we saw how that worked in Hurricane Katrina.
Yep.
Even with like a completely, anemic federal response, and
so on one hand, Trump is sort of shoving the National Guard down the throats of folks in California who have specifically said don't do it, and then pulling back resources for things like real emergencies. I mean, that's the story of what's going on here. And here is Trump just, was that this morning or yesterday?
Yesterday. Bring in
the troops, says Trump. And of course, there's Charlie Kirk.
Saying bring in the troops. Yep. There we go.
Charlie Kirk is all geeked up.
What? Could they borrow some of the buses that you used on January 6th?
Yeah, exactly.
I think this was over the weekend, by the way, but
Maybe say it is the
June
9th.
9th.
Yeah.
does it say there? Oh, okay.
And then this is also, I mean, past the big, beautiful bill, this is, how they're trying to shore up all the support as you have the Hawks versus the dead Hawks versus the tax cut people. Well, you're anti-American. You support the invasion if you don't pass the BBB.
What's the part that we're supposed to team up with Charlie Kirk about? Is it that he's anti-war? I can't remember now. What is it?
What
is it that I know we're supposed to have a beer with him, but what is it that we're supposed to join Charlie Kirk in doing?
It's really tough to remember at this point, I gotta say.
You still have that ka-ching sound effect? Could answer things.
Honestly,
Speaking
what is
of
it that
Gavin
we're
Newsom.
supposed to? What is it we're supposed to do?
But right, isn't it? Right. I was reminded of that fluffy interview that Gavin Newsom conducted, the governor, on his podcast with Charlie Kirk.
Exactly.
Right? Yes.
Hey, Gavin, how'd that work out?
How'd it work out, buddy?
Why didn't Newsom just call Charlie Kirk and say, "Hey, man, we're gonna pod again. Let's do this," instead of like we can have
so
a
much
debate.
in common, as you're basically saying, send in the troops over your newfound buddy's objection. Insane.
Pizza Dog. Local news confirming ICE raids at South Omaha meatpacking plants, liberal city in a red state, Don Bacon's district. We have yet to see widespread ICE enforcement in a lot of the key red districts in red states.
Yep.
My understanding is Kristi Noem, I remember reports from like early in this administration, Kristi Noem apparently had a lot of people maybe at her farm.
Undocumented folks. There's targeting. They want to make a big display in cities because, of course, that's the decay of multiculturalism. And then they're going to move on to meet their quotas elsewhere. But this was all about the pretext of, setting up and expanding their authority and their power.
I have just a late edition here. Zoran gave a press conference, and Dave Weigel clipped an interesting part of it, just 20 seconds here about what America needs as from mayors in this moment.
Yeah.
It is authoritarianism. It is an example of what the Trump administration is already doing across this country and hopes to bring to cities from coast to coast. What we deserve in this moment is a mayor who can look that authoritarianism in the eye and not see a reflection of themselves.
Ooh.
There, next to him, Chiose, guest for tomorrow on this program.
So, oh, yeah.
Very cool.
Cuomo's out there going like, wait, what? Wait.
Cuomo's the guy who got us through COVID by putting all those people in nursing homes to die.
All right, let's just check in on this. We'll do number 18. Do we have not 18? Do we have any footage out of the flotilla? I guess we don't. We know that I enjoy the wording of the way this was reported, that Greta Thunberg was deported from Israel. She wasn't going to Israel.
She was kidnapped.
She was kidnapped, brought to Israel, and then deported from Israel. And she was put on a plane.
Which, by the way, like, so Greta doesn't fly out of objections due to climate change and fossil fuels. It's why she sailed across the Atlantic to come to the U.S. at one point, and it's why the flotilla was a sailboat that took off from southern Italy to go to Gaza. This is a way to humiliate her, I'm sure. Like,
yeah, I got this from a Zionist, like, innovation minister who's like, hope you enjoy the service.
This is what they got out of it. They got some photo of her on a plane. With her autism diagnosis, I have to say that she's putting herself in a lot of really stressful, to put it mildly, situations. Her bravery can't be overstated. But they at least, she's safe at the very least, because they bombed the original flotilla that was supposed to go and take her around a month and a half ago.
Let's check and see what the anti-war president, Donald Trump, has to say about this woman who was on a boat with food, medical supplies, prosthetic limbs for children, and other humanitarian supplies, period. I mean, that's it. Food. And let's listen to what the anti-war president, Donald Trump, has to say about this.
Do you have a message for Greta Thunberg, and did she come up on your call with the Prime Minister today?
Well, she's a strange person. She's a young, angry person. I don't know if it's real anger. It's hard to believe, actually, but I saw what happened. She's certainly different. Anger management. I think she has to go to an anger management class. That's my primary recommendation for her.
Was she kidnapped by Israel, as she says? Was she kidnapped?
I find it. I think Israel has enough problems without kidnapping Greta Thunberg.
And secondly, are you going to
Is that what she said? She was kidnapped by Israel?
Yes, sir.
I mean, how did she get to Israel? How did she get to Israel? They were taking a boat to Gaza.
They were in international waters. They were marked as a UK ship. Israel has no jurisdiction, but they did it anyway because right now we're in the era of the rule of the jungle, and Israel has all of our weapons. And like Trump seemed kind of fed. I can tell but the reporting is that he's fed up with Netanyahu. But we've heard this before with Biden. Like I don't take that more than just like, okay, that's interesting. And he seems exacerbated with Israel there, but he's too stupid and he's too racist against Palestinians to like actually do anything to bring Israel to heel. He's never gonna, I don't think, halt weapons to Israel. So then what is all of this for?
I don't even think he was actually taken. I first saw that in isolation. It sounded like he was being condescending to Israel. I think he was awkwardly actually being condescending about Greta.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
We heard one relatively bat crap person comment on the Greta Thunberg trip. Let's listen to one who is even more bat crap crazy. What is the status of Russell Brand's legal proceedings regarding the claims of, I think it's multiple women that he sexually assaulted them?
I've been wondering about that. I think he's back in the UK. I'm not sure if he's facing charges or what's going on.
No, they brought charges against him.
I know they did. I'm not sure if that's why he's back there.
I saw he was baptized. Is that?
Well,
like
no. I
illegal?
wanted to see.
Sentence served.
I actually wanted to see if we could have a graph that had days until he was indicted on the one axis, and then amount of religiousness on the other axis to see where they would intersect.
So Russell Brand, host of Stay Free on Rumble, is
Stay Free
is the
where's that
interesting name there?
Wish fulfillment.
He's out on conditional bail after pleading not guilty to rape and assault.
Okay, well,
5 charges.
Innocent until proven guilty. But I'm also willing to forgive him if he becomes super religious and gives himself over to the Lord our Savior and repents. I mean, not really, but
I mean, at least on
that's
camera.
a theory.
That's what he's betting on.
He should have to put a shirt on at the very least.
Yeah, well, that's something.
Interesting wearing sunglasses again. But yeah, here he is talking about Greta.
You cynical, filthy Europeans. Israel seizes Gaza-bound activist boat and detains Greta Thunberg. And here is Greta Thunberg being captured while delivering food to Gaza. Let's have a look.
My name is Greta Thunberg and I am from Sweden.
Well, firstly, we've all been saying it wrong. I mean, I had no... That's an unsayable sound. I didn't know that. My name is
I am from Sweden. If you see this video, we have been...
seem terribly Christian to mock people that way.
Jesus loves speaking in tongues, Sam.
It's funny. He seems to have like come back around after the
old Russ looks a little bit back right now.
Yeah, he's a little bit back after the indictment. Back out on probation.
Wearing sunglasses indoors.
I'm back out on probation. Lord has not protected me in the way that I thought he did. So maybe I have to go back to my other means of generating revenue.
Let's find an apolitical way of attacking this young woman.
From Sweden. If you see this video, we have been intercepted and kidnapped in international waters.
Right, let's go and get her now. She's been intercepted and kidnapped. We've got to go and get Greta Thunberg. Get her! Rescue Greta! Cancel that shot, you lunatic.
That's a guy named Jeff.
We've got to rescue her. Now back to... Quick! I like that. I like the sort of casual grandiosity of that.
She's shocked, too. She's just like, I can't believe we're captured. She didn't know that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Can you...
It's crazy.
Are they dumb? She pre-recorded that video, obviously, and submitted it, and I think Prem Talker was the reporter who she sent it to.
Because they thought it might happen, yeah.
To release it when it happens. That's what happens all the time.
Also, just to
In
say,
war,
they got arrested at international waters.
I'm sorry. You know, what they're saying is absolutely ridiculous, but I'm trying to imagine that guy in the hat and everybody else on the set when Russell Brand shows up wearing a kimono and saying, are we ready to shoot? Here. Are we ready to shoot? I've taken off my clothes now. Are we ready to shoot?
Can you see the cross? Is the cross visible, mate?
Hey, mate. Can you see my abs? I mean, that's my six-pack going.
Wait.
I'm ready to talk about the news now. No. Let me get my nipples erect, and then we'll talk about the news.
There you go, MR out of context.
Thank you.
Look, on one level, I really like Greta Thunberg. I admire people that will pursue their ideology. Do you think that we should find compassion in our hearts for people we disagree with? For example, I do believe that climate change is being exploited to legitimize new measures of control, and that Greta Thunberg is promoted by
control of things like Exxon, for instance.
Right. We're losing day by day our ability to drill wherever we want.
He has
new forms of control.
Russell has lost his ability, or at least to drill wherever he wants without consent. That's true.
Whoa!
I was a little hesitant to do the rape joke, but I went for it.
He deserves it.
Yeah.
Yep.
By the culture, because she somehow perfectly represents a sort of pagan idea of Cassandra, a hysterical figure on the edge of the culture. How dare you? How dare you? She does a brilliant job. All of us at different points have been deployed by the culture. I myself was used for a while as a sort of hedonistic playboy individual promoting.
Sorry, I just have to jump in here.
I was used, wouldn't it? It might be.
It's a good thing I'm not being used no more, mate.
Right.
He is on a platform that is owned by Donald Trump's Commerce Secretary, as he speaks right now, Rumble, a.k.a. Cantor Fitzgerald Acquisition Corporation number 6. That is Rumble. It's owned by Trump's like, maybe you're still being used, mate. Maybe there's some agendas being served right now, having you on, mate.
But I do like him, like, oh, I was used in the past.
Incidentally, I'm not being used as a sex symbol anymore. I just like it's a little bit warm in this studio.
The paganism.
I'm sorry. My kimono, it chafes my nipples, so I've got to keep my shirt open.
Sandra, a hysterical figure on the edge of the culture. How dare you? How dare you? She does a brilliant job. All of us at different points have been deployed by the culture. I myself was used for a while as a sort of hedonistic playboy individual promoting decadence and promiscuity, which worked out very well for me, I have to say. So Greta Thunberg, she's... I have to respect the fact that she is so committed
so much respect.
to
So he was used by the culture, and that's part of the problem.
He was used by big promiscuity,
Right.
to promote promiscuity.
So the Hollywood cabal made him into an alleged rapist.
the devil made him promiscuous.
Yeah,
Isn't it?
the culture made him ask a man or brag about having sex with a man's daughter on the phone to him on the BBC radio. That's what the culture was making him do.
The devil is everywhere.
I have to respect the fact that she is so committed to virtue and what she believes to be true, even if I feel like she's being moved about on the chessboard by powers that have a deeper and more articulate understanding of the reality upon which she comments. But maybe that's true of all of us, continually true of all of us. And certainly there needs to be some kind of resolution to the ongoing blockades and suffering of the people of Gaza that needn't immediately open one up to accusations of anti-Semitism simply to discuss it. That's why we have Isaac here, to ensure that when I'm saying that...
There's a Jewish guy, so he decides to do a little bit of...
I love the fact that he both wants, is like, she's actually doing something to open up the blockade. Like, even at the very, very least, it gives this guy an opportunity to say we should open up the blockade, which is exactly what she's doing. Like, I don't think that they thought they were actually going to be able to land. Maybe there was a small chance, and there was a small chance. But obviously, this is to draw attention to the blockade. And yet, he thinks that she's being manipulated in actually doing something to do the thing that he says should be done.
But what was his biblical reference to her? Is he gesturing towards, there's that conspiracy theory, Peter Thiel has said this before, that she could be the Antichrist.
He called it a pagan.
Yeah.
Pagan. So this is interesting to me, right? Do we know what Thiel's involvement is in Rumble?
I'm sure there's some crossover.
Oh my God!
I'm just pointing out that
certainly the PayPal mafia has invested in it. To some extent.
I'm just pointing out that it's interesting that he's all about freedom and trying to articulate these thoughts in a way that isn't controlled by big Hollywood or big money, but. Cantor Fitzgerald, heavy investor in Rumble. Peter Thiel, likely investor in Rumble, at least involved. And they have been railing against Greta Thunberg for I don't know how long, because she shines a light on the exploitation of the environment and on capitalism and on genocide.
Forbes headline, Rumble, the J.D. Vance-backed YouTube clone is finally relevant. That was from December 2024. This is just from a little bit earlier, the first time they bring up this Greta Thunberg thing. And he mentions one of our faves.
Where that comes from. How would we be in this controversial time if we did not welcome the opinion of the Jew? they have a present. They're from the Old Testament. You're right, mate.
Yeah, doing well.
Can I get that APAC money, please? Because,
I'll run out because they had to take Greta Thunberg away.
Yeah, Greta Thunberg, she's out there. Did you see? I want to see that post where, of course, someone predictably says, look, it's Babylon. We try not to ever use Babylon B, our producer says, because they're so good, you could use them all the time. But Israel seizes Gaza-bound activist boat and detains Greta Thunberg. Here's how the Babylon B handles that. Hamas agrees to surrender surrender if Europe will take Greta Thunberg back. Why don't we go? I want to go to Israel. Where's those people? Didn't Dave Rubin said he was going to take us to Israel?
You want to go to Israel?
Said he was going to take us to Israel. One brief stint.
He would be right at home there. He would be right at home. He's gonna be a sex pest that hides from the authorities in his home country. There's a good amount of those in Israel, a high quotient, I would say. All right.
Well, we gave you a little bit of fun half in the free part of the show, ladies and gentlemen.
More like the I need to take a shower half.
Exactly.
How do you order a sound drop up in here? I'm gonna have to consult later about that.
We'll talk about it after. But the quote, I think, from Peter Thiel was, "Doesn't the Antichrist come to power by acting as the Cacheton, as Greta says she's doing?" I'm not sure what the Cachon
It's probably some
is.
Lord of the Rings shit.
Okay. Either way. Oh, it's a force that withholds or restrains the Antichrist's full manifestation. Doesn't make it any less insane to hear that.
Folks, it's your support that makes this show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajority.report.com. When you do, you not only get the free half of the show, commercial free, but you also get the fun half, wherein you can IM us. We just gave you a little taste of some of the fun. In fact, that may be all the fun that we have today. I don't even know. It's possible. We'll take your phone calls. We'll take some IMs in the fun half today. Don't forget our merch. Selling like hotcakes. Hotcakes that you pre-order. Like you order before you get to the restaurant so that they're there when you show up.
They're hot to go.
Check out the trucker hats, et cetera, et cetera. Matt, what's happening on Left Reckoning?
Left Reckoning tonight. We got Steven Semler on talking about political economy, where our investments going, like is it going to border fascism or is it going to things like Medicaid? The results are going to shock you. Also, David talked to two members of The Nation magazine on their 160th anniversary, and I would note that The Nation allows you to see all 160 years of their archives, unlike the National Review, which doesn't go back nearly as long and also doesn't want you to know what they were publishing in the 1960s.
Wait, who's coming on your show from The Nation?
A few Nation. I'm not sure David did the interview, but it's a couple of people from The Nation because they got a Disunited States issue out that's on their 160th anniversary.
Oh, interesting. Folks, see you in the fun half.
3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now. And I don't think it's going to be the same as it looks like in 6 months from now. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better 6 months from now than it is 3 months from now. But I think around 18 months out, we're going to look back and go like, wow. What? What is that going on? It's nuts. Wait a second. Hold on for a second. Emma, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Matt.
What is up, everyone?
Nomi Key.
You did it. Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
Bradley, you want to say hello?
Sorry to disappoint everyone. I'm just a random guy.
It's all the boys today.
Fundamentally false.
No, I'm sorry. Women's
Stop talking for a second and let me finish.
Where is this coming from, dude?
But dude, you want to smoke this
7-8?
Yes.
Hi, me? This me?
Yes.
Is this me?
Is it me?
It is you.
Is this me? Hello, is this me?
I think it is you. Who is you? No sound. Every single frickin' day. What's on your mind?
Sports. We can discuss free markets and we can discuss capitalism.
I'm gonna go throw up.
Libertarians. They're so stupid though. Common sense says, of course.
Gobbledygook.
We fucking nailed him.
So what's 79 plus 21?
Challenge Matt.
I'm positively quivering.
I believe 96, I want to say. 857-210-501. 1/2. 3/8.
9/11, for instance.
$3,400, $1,900.
6, 5, 4, $3 trillion sold. It's a zero-sum game.
Actually, you're making me think less of it.
But let me say this. Poop.
You can call it satire. Sam goes, it's satire.
On top of it all,
Yeah.
My favorite part about you is just like every day, all day, like everything you do.
Without a doubt. Hey, buddy, we see you. All right, folks.
It's just the weak being weeded out, obviously.
Yeah, sun's out, guns out. I don't know.
But you should know.
People just don't like to entertain ideas anymore.
I have a question. Who cares?
Our chat is enabled, folks.
I love it.
I do love that.
Look, gotta jump. Gotta be quick. I gotta jump.
I'm losing it, bro.
2 o'clock. We're already late, and the guy's being a dick. So screw him. Sent to a gulag?
Outrageous.
Like, what is wrong with you?
Love you, bye.
Love you. Bye-bye. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland, Fun Half, Tuesday, June 10th. Theo is not alive. Sam, I've heard you talk about the importance of the Hasidic vote to Cuomo before, so I'm interested in your thoughts on 25 Hasidic sects and institutions in Borough Park endorsing Adrian Adams, number 1, and Zellner, number 2. No Cuomo. What's that?
Zellner?
Zellner.
Yeah, which is still
Now,
good for Zoran.
This is pretty good for Zoran, but I will remind you, there are basically, as far as I know, 2 or 3 major elements of the Hasidic vote in New York. And Borough Park, I think, is the second largest. The first largest is like Williamsburg and outside of Borough Park. They're the Satmars, I believe, which is one sect of Hasids. And I believe Borough Park is the Bubov or something like that.
And then you got the Lubavitchers. Those are the ones in Crown Heights where they had that.
That's Chabad.
Right. The
tunnel.
The Lubavitcher temple, right?
So I don't know. I mean, it certainly doesn't hurt. But I don't. My sense is they tend to be the least conservative in terms of when they're. But I'm not sure. They and I think they're also somewhat transactional, although I would imagine, I mean, they all are. But the reason why they're such an important voting bloc is because if their Rebbe basically says, this is the way you're voting,
Yeah.
they all go and vote, and they vote that way. Let's take a little trip down memory lane, shall we? As everybody's in limbo over these tariff wars, as hiring seems to have stalled a bit. It's not as bad as people imagine, but there's been a downward revision on past Bureau of Labor Statistics numbers. And there's a big divergence between the household and survey and the Bureau of Labor Statistics measurements. That happens. The household survey looks a lot worse. But it happens that there's sort of a divergence between these things. And usually the BLS is the gold standard. Nevertheless, as we await the meeting between Trump and Xi that we're supposedly going to get, and all these deals that have been on the table. There have been a lot of deals on the table.
It'll be the season finale of the tariff wars when he goes to meet with Xi.
Just to get you updated, back in April 3rd, which is over 2 months ago,
Howard Lutnick had this to say on CBS.
You're right in the long term, but in the long term, we're all dead. So how long are we going to have to wait for the benefits to come pouring in?
Well, you started hearing it recently when Donald Trump yesterday said we have about $5 trillion of committed investment to America. $5 trillion. That means people are going to start building factories right now. And that means all that construction work begins now. That starts to employ Americans today. You're going to see plants being built, factories rebuilding. All ships are going to be running hot across America now. You're going to see employment leaping starting today.
So you're right.
Okay, so now, look, I understand where, you're a commerce secretary, you say employment's going to start leaping today. No, you need a month for it to catch up, at least. So we'll see it, not so much in the April numbers. We're going to see it in the May numbers, right?
Right.
And here is Stuart Varney interviewing Labor Secretary Lori Chavez-DeRimmer, explaining how it is we got all these jobs.
Now, 8,000 manufacturing jobs were lost in May. That's not what you wanted to see.
Well, we're certainly holding steady, and under the Trump administration, manufacturing jobs are still up over what the last administration under Biden had. The focus of my America at Work tour is to increase those manufacturing jobs, and we'll continue to stay laser focused on that as the president continues to double down on how important this is to the American economy.
But how come we're losing 8,000 manufacturing jobs in May, and when there's a big push to bring manufacturing jobs back to America, how come we're losing those jobs?
Well, we're certainly holding steady. And as we increase construction jobs, as we increase healthcare jobs, and again, that focus on building those manufacturing plants, it will take some time. The president has done a wonderful job in negotiating the level playing field. As far as the tariff discussions have gone, but those onshoring of those jobs, we're seeing tens of trillions of dollars being reinvested here in the United States. And I'll continue to focus on that skilled workforce as those manufacturing jobs continue to grow.
It's confusing.
You say continued to grow, and I'm saying that it stopped and actually went down by 8,000. Your comment.
It holding steady, or is it...
And then when she says that it's actually up over where it was with Biden, that's because it continued to grow until Trump did this.
Yes, right. Biden added manufacturing jobs, and there was a net loss of manufacturing jobs under Trump. Now, that was COVID at the end, but still, now he's proving he's got a mulligan to try this again, and we're losing manufacturing jobs because they did tariffs without doing any industrial trade policy first to build up our manufacturing capacity to bring the jobs here. We literally don't even have the ability to do what he says the tariffs are designed to do. We need the factories and the materials first before you say, oh, we're just going to make all these materials here. He's talking about making iPhones here. You think we have that capacity? Are you joking? We've been benefiting from the outsourcing and from globalization broadly as a country because, and our capitalists have, because the only thing that people have in the U.S. are cheap consumer goods. We don't have any social safety net, and that's part of what neoliberalism has created. That's the economy they wanted.
And we could make this sort of stuff here, and we should make conscious decisions about what kind of things we want to produce in this country. But it's going to cost people who have been hoarding a lot of wealth through this sort of labor arbitrage worldwide to cough that up and put it towards reinvestment into things like these. And it can't just be Trump's buddies making BS sort of press releases saying, yeah, I'm going to invest trillions of dollars, buddy. Just, do the tax bill first.
All this stuff is just going to get memory hold. They don't care. They just want to get this bill passed, cut their taxes. That's it. That's it. Meanwhile, Elon Musk, no longer with the government. The Doge people are still there. The head of Social Security called himself a Doge guy, although there is I guess, some infighting in the administration trying to get rid of some of the Doge people because they're not as loyal to Donald Trump as they are to Elon Musk. And of course, I would also imagine Stephen Miller is a little bit upset now that he's got so much, he doesn't have to spend time with his family anymore at home.
Put himself into his work.
Yeah. Here is Steve Bannon. I think, and remember, like, you know, Bannon and Miller are, I think, if I remember from the first go round, pretty aligned in their philosophies. Here is Steve Bannon hanging out with Chuck Todd at a restaurant. What do they do? This is some type of, this is Chuck Todd's TV show?
Chuck Todd has launched, apparently, a new program on a new streaming platform that is impossible to watch unless you...
What's the platform?
What's it called? It's on the sheet there.
Aussie 2?
Oh my God.
I'm joking. It's the Noosphere.
Noosphere. And you got
Not much better.
Noosph.
You got to make an account
But
and everything.
you remember what Aussie was, right?
Oh, yeah.
I remember they did the Aussie Fest.
They did the Aussie Fest, but the guy who ran that, I think, is in jail now for fraud.
What about
Carlos?
Tubi?
What was his name?
Tubi was another one, right?
Well, that just crashed. But the Aussie thing was a complete disaster.
Okay.
But here is Chuck Todd, not in any way affiliated with the Aussie Fest or whatever it is. On with Steve Bannon.
He's an agent of influence, I would say. An agent of influence.
That's an allegation.
I'm calling for an investigation. Okay. I think if you go back and connect the dots, the question I want to have answered is not just how the whole briefing of why would a businessman, right, want a briefing, even if it dealt with, he's going to find waste, fraud, and abuse. Why would you need a briefing at a highly classified level in the tank at the Pentagon on the China war plan? And
would the CEO of Boeing get a briefing like that?
He would most certainly would not, sir.
Right, and Boeing arguably has as much of a relationship with the Pentagon.
Lockheed Martin, which has, as you know, the most black programs historically, right? They would not get that briefing because they don't have a need to know.
There you go. Chuck Todd with Steve Bannon calling for investigations of Elon Musk.
Bannon just calls for what liberals called for like 3 months ago.
There could have been some questioning of Elon Musk at one point. There was the Government Oversight Committee, I think it was. I can't remember which committee it was going to issue a subpoena for Elon Musk. And somebody didn't tell Ro Khanna to go and vote for it, so it was a tie vote. The committee found itself with like almost the majority of Democrats because a couple of Republicans were out. And
House oversight.
And what an oversight it was. They somehow left Ro Khanna out.
It's so weird that he represents Silicon Valley and is old friends with with Elon and has some, I would say, interesting investments in his stock portfolio that may preclude him from being too tough on these guys.
I would love Steve Bannon's desire to have Elon Musk investigated. In fact, I think that's probably should happen if the Democrats take the House in 2026. Not just for that, though. Not just for being a foreign agent, but also let's let the American public know how much he has been suckling off of the taxpayer teat after shutting down half of our government because of supposedly fraud and waste and abuse. Here is Scott Galloway on Piers Morgan. I'm not sure that I love Scott Galloway's politics, broadly speaking, but I certainly love some of his appearances as of late. And
he's like the most sane person they often will have on, I feel like, Morning Joe. And I know that is not a really high bar to clear, but he's made good points that we've played on this show, on that show, because there's such a desert of them. And
I think also, he works with Kara Swisher. And when it comes to Elon Musk, she at least has been on a mea culpa tour for quite some time in the way that she sort of like fluffed up Elon Musk back in the day.
Kara Swisher credulous?
And
she continues to do that with other big tech figures, which is why, like, this is not just about Elon. This is about billionaires.
Yeah, 100%. Now, Galloway makes a sort of like some type of like a moral argument, and in my estimation, misses some of the point, but I'll take it.
Genius, really, in many other ways. I mean, do you accept, Scott, that he's a genius, or do you feel it's smoke and mirrors with Musk? Because when I watched him talk me through his optimist thing, I just saw the 10-year-old boy who used to write programs doing it on a massive scale and loving that. Whereas I think he's really struggled with the criticism he's had in the political arena.
I don't think you can deny his genius. I'll use Starlink on my flight to London in a couple days, and it's a superior product. I owned a Tesla. But somehow we've decided in America that innovation and money replaces or obviates or excuses depravity. Cutting off aid to HIV-positive mothers, deciding what veterans should get benefits, cutting off SNAP payments, which have shown to have a positive net return when people run out of money for food at the end of the month. I mean, I think one of the wonderful things about being an American, and quite frankly, for me, what it means to be a man and what I try to teach my boys is the whole point of prosperity is such that you can protect people. And I think the two of you are more impressed with Mr. Musk than I am. I think if somebody is making Nazi salutes, if somebody is being sued concurrently by two women for sole custody of their child because that person has not spent any time with that child, when someone is so severely addicted to drugs they can't get their shit together to show up to the White House without looking exceptionally high, I don't think that's the right role model for young men. So what I would ask of all of us is look at what money has done to us. That if someone can land a rocket on metal scissors or create a great AV, he's a genius. He's the wealthiest man in the world. But does that mean we should excuse depravity? Does that mean, unlike Bill Gates, he's not using his billions to help people? He's not planting trees, the shade of which he won't sit under? I think this is an individual who has literally come off the tracks, who is rabidly addicted to drugs, and is using his immense power to get people elected, and that too many of us excuse what is abhorrent behavior. I think his legacy is not going to be an EV or putting rockets into space. I think it's going to be unnecessary death, disease, and disability of the world's most vulnerable. That is not what it means to be an innovator. It's not what it means to be an American. It's not what it means to be a man.
Wow. Kevin.
I mean, I like the fact that he embarrasses these guys on their own turf. But the fact of the matter is that the problem with Musk may be all those things, but the real problem with Musk is not that he takes drugs, not that he was in a position to cut these things. It is the structural, or I should say, not that he had the impetus to cut these things. It is the structural reasons why he had the ability to do so. And he's so close, right? Like, he's so close in the sense that we are willing to sort of like deify people with money when they don't deserve it. But then he sort of compares him to Bill Gates and doesn't understand that Bill Gates, I don't care that Bill Gates is giving away his money in the way that Bill Gates wants to. Bill Gates should not have that money. We saw what Bill Gates did with, and we can bless him with the best of intentions, but we saw what Bill Gates did to education in this country. He dumped at least $1 billion, maybe more, into, with the promise of billions and billions more, into a project that brought us high stakes testing, value added measurements of teaching, that by his own commissioned Rand report in 2017 said this was a huge mistake. Meanwhile, for almost a decade and a half, we lost and demoralized teachers. We undermined schools. We undermined education. Really, in many respects, setting up the administration that we have now between Arnie Duncan and George Bush's No Child Left Behind and the race to the top really set up in many respects some of the premises for what we see happening to education now with vouchers. And that was because of Bill Gates was so wealthy that he could do this. And we saw what he did with monetizing the one of the COVID vaccines. It doesn't matter what their intentions are. No single individual should have this power in a democracy, or really in any type of system of government, but particularly in a democracy.
The terms that he grants, which is the whole genius fetish, which is, I think, just infantile, frankly. The accomplishments of NASA over the past half century, we don't attribute those to one single genius. Those were a bunch of geniuses, I guess.
There was a genius.
There's a single one, exactly.
The marketing guy.
But because we have privatized these things under Barack Obama, now the guy at the top, we look at them like, oh, they must be the brains behind all this, despite all the evidence of our eyes when we could actually see him. And it's clear that he doesn't have the brains, he has the money. And if you have the money, you can play in these sorts of fields, just like Jeff Bezos does. So yeah, this idea that
and let's be
grown men
clear,
become a
for
genius,
every one, this is basically roulette. Because for every one Elon Musk, there was 20 other or 30 other guys who put bets down and they just didn't pay off.
His character would be completely irrelevant if he didn't have the money that he has. Like the whole argument about he should not be in a position. We should not have a human being in a position outside of, say, elected office where you can then recall them or replace them. We should not have people in positions where their character can be so impactful on people's lives and is completely privatized and outside of the scope of democratic input.
and the justification for why we are doing that and are accepting it as supposedly upright standing people is that they're so good at innovation and technology and stuff, and that's a lie. It's a lie that all the three of those guys subscribe to.
And the fact that he's Swisher's co-host, and again, overall, it's good that he has a lot of the right arguments, but it's important to take it the next step because Bill Gates is on some sort of PR push right now, I think, consciously to try to contrast him with Elon Musk. And this should not work. We should not embrace this. We should not embrace the siloing of Elon Musk from the impact of his money, even the impact of his money on his psychosis, because there is some sort of level of we can't understand how billionaires live and they don't understand how we live at a certain point because they are so insulated from all of that. And it creates a level just by its nature of alienation from humanity that is detrimental to society.
Nick09, I listened to a podcast and interviewed the engineers at Tesla. Podcast called Land of the Giants. One of the engineers said that Elon couldn't even figure out how to get the Tesla door handles to operate like he envisioned them to. And that was this engineer's entire team's responsibility. Again, even if all of what they're saying and stipulating was true, it's not because he's a drug addict or he's a bad dad or that he doesn't care about other human beings. What is problematic? Because those people walk around us all the time.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he's not the only drug addict. He's not the only bad dad. He's not the only person who doesn't give a crap about other human beings. But he is one of a few who have been granted godlike powers because he's been allowed to accrue so much money. That's the difference. That's the part that's missed there. Crunchy, where can I read to learn more about the Gates public education? Well, I would start with The Gates Foundation Rand report, I think it was in 2017. Let me see if Gates Foundation Rand report. Gates Foundation Rand report, education, maybe.
Can I recommend a book on the topic while you look that up?
Sure.
Tim Schwab wrote a book called The Bill Gates Problem. That's a pretty good.
Oh, I think we interviewed him too, actually.
It's a very good book, and yeah, I'm sure that interview is probably worth listening to as well.
I don't understand why I can't find. Oh, maybe news. Well, that's bad. Google's useless. We'll try and find a link for you.
AI is only getting exponentially better, Sam. So you'll be able to find that report in about 3 months.
Yeah, accidentally searched on their AI function the other day. They're now like making that right next to the search for Google. Keep inputting into our system.
Now, while Ken Martin is apparently he's going to stay on as Democrat chair of the DNC, even though it's really hard, his job. I don't know how you could have looked at the Democrats and particularly where they were and be like, this is going to be a cakewalk.
And Perez kind of thought it was going to be easier than he thought too, didn't he? Like,
you certainly get that sense.
Well, maybe he thought that the lay down and he thought he'd be hibernating for a year.
I can play dead better than anybody.
Right before the midterms, I guess he heard about the Schumer-Carville strategy and thought all right, great gig.
But we have some good news. The Arizona Democrats. Well, here, let's play this.
And this is Kai Newkirk, who was on this program 12 years ago in 2014 as an organizer for 99 Rising, talking about the Supreme Court. But yeah, here he is.
Great organizer.
Hey folks, Kai Newkirk, co-chair of our Progressive Council. I just want to thank everybody because today Arizona Democrats made history. We are the first state party to commit to banning billionaires and corporations from buying our primary. We're excited to work with everyone in the committee process to bring in all the voices, all the stakeholders to get this policy right and bring it back in September. Thank you all. Let's get it done.
This is a big deal because we should have now. Obviously, it has limited impact. It's just Arizona. I don't know if it would impact a presidential primary.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, but I don't know how you would do that within the context of Arizona state, although maybe they would make a determination. But the point is, it's one thing to say in a general election, you don't want Democrats to unilaterally disarm against Republicans. And I think that argument has some merit. I really do. But it's another to say that we as Democrats, or Democrats, however they want to define it, say we are not going to allow corporations or billionaires or basically money to determine the outcome of our primary elections. If you're going to raise a ton of money, you got to do it from a lot of people. That to me seems, because then the floodgates can open in the general election. But the primary is the place to basically say we're going to allow, I would hope the Republicans do this too. We're going to allow the voters to determine who our nominee is in any given election.
I mean, if you haven't really been in the habit of voting in primary elections, wouldn't you be more compelled to vote in the one that the party says we're not going to let be bought by corporations and billionaires?
Okay. It is Improving Teaching Effectiveness Final Report by the Rand Corporation. Here it is. There, yeah, you got it. And let me just scroll down to the key findings. Now, understand, this was a limited, they poured about $1 billion into, like, I don't know, maybe half a dozen, I can't remember off the top of my head, schools. But understand that the way this resonated throughout the entire country is that they also created all sorts of stuff because they thought they were going to roll out a lot of Microsoft products as well, and funded grants to a lot of schools. And when you take a public system and you dump $1 billion into it, even if we spend, I don't know what, $60 billion, $100 billion a year on education, the idea that there's extra money out there has an oversized influence. And the fact that you had a billionaire do it, he had oversized influence. Okay. Here are the key findings. Sites succeeded in implementing measures of effectiveness to evaluate teachers, made use of the measures in a range of human. Every site adopted an observation rubric. Every site implemented a composite measure. Every site used the composite measure. Overall, however, okay, so in other words, every school that we set out to use this experiment, they fully adopted all of these things. Value-added teaching, high-stakes testing. Overall, however, the initiative did not achieve its goals for student achievement or graduation. With minor exceptions, student achievement, access to effective teaching, and dropout rates were not dramatically better than they were for similar sites that did not participate in the partnership initiative.
It's what we call the null hypothesis.
There are several possible reasons that the initiative failed to produce the desired dramatic improvement in outcomes across all years. The last one being a flawed theory of action or a combination of these factors. Basically, they go on to say, we should have listened to teachers.
Better luck next time.
And this was a 10-year, I think it was a 10-year, 8-year experiment. And it had impact across the country. Arnie Duncan, the Secretary of Education at that time, was a big proponent of this stuff. And understand, it was also out there before. They didn't just like one day wake up and do it. They were gearing up for this. So they were creating a political atmosphere, and they could do it because they have billions of dollars. Okay, let's open up the phones.
It's nice to be able to do that, and if you win, you get to install Microsoft Office on a recurring basis for, perpetuity. And if you don't, well, I'll just do something else. I'll just buy up farmland now.
Lydia Rose, when asked about the ban on Medicaid being used for gender-affirming care for transgender people, Elizabeth Warren says, I haven't seen it. Democratic politicians and media, majority report included, are not talking about this all. Is this a lack of awareness or what? Please talk about this. The ban on Medicaid in the reconciliation bill? Is that what it is? I have not seen that. We'll look into it. Cat Leck. This is off topic, but I need some advice. I'm in a debtor group for the Purdue bankruptcy from OxyContin wrecking my life. I just got papers requiring a bunch of records I don't have from what appears to be the company that bought the form that was originally representing us. This new company is owned by Purdue's bankruptcy shell company. I don't know what to do, and I think they're going to get away with this. I'm in Arizona, if that matters. I would... were you in a class action? I would see if there's attorneys, but I would contact maybe your AG or your district attorney and see if they have any information. Charlie Jerk. Hey, the phone isn't coming through on the show isn't coming through on the phone. What happened with that? Oh, on the phone lines. I see. I see. I'm going to hang up and call back in. I thought that was on the app or something. Calling from an 847 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, is this me?
It is you.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I'm calling from Chicago. And I just wondered if you could address, in Illinois, there's like a really big budget gap for transportation. I think somewhere around $700 million, something like that. And so obviously transportation plays like a big economic role. Since you all are in NYC, I wondered if you had dealt with something similar, or how you deal with the transportation paying for it. That's it.
Oh, you mean in like how our transport? What do you mean? How do we deal with it? How is our transportation paid for?
Well, yeah, like it's sort of two things. One, have you dealt with budget gaps before, and how have you dealt with that?
I believe the MTA, I mean, the subway has definitely had budget gaps in the past.
But like Mamdani has a proposal to make a bus fare free, and there have been analyses done of like the cost of enforcing the fare versus the cost of just making them free, and the cost of making them free saves the city money. So that's an example of a reform that could happen if he gets elected, or it's one of his promises. But right now in the city, we're also funding improvements to the subway based on the congestion pricing. So,
okay,
does that help you at all?
A little bit. I mean, it's obviously like a big thing to tackle, but I admit I'm not like 100% familiar how Illinois in particular even got in this situation. Like, I know we're constantly being told, oh, the pensions, we have to pay for those, which we do. But I'm just saying, like, the L is all the subway system has been around for a while. And, it's more than just the L. There's the sort of local, like the regional, like trains that bring everyone into the city, and the buses. And so to me, like, one problem I think with politicians here, probably everywhere, is like, if we saw this coming, like, why haven't we been talking about it sooner? And overall, I'm just looking for, like, at other large cities, like, for example, so sort of how to deal with this kind of thing. So that was all. I'll hang up and see what you have to say, but thanks for taking my call.
Appreciate the call.
Can I say, I think, sometimes the immediate like thought by most mainstream like centrist or right-wing politicians is the users need to pay for the increase in costs, right? Like since I've been living in New York, the subway fare has gone up like I don't know how many times, but significantly, and it's, I think, worth considering ways in which, for example, in New York, now they're passing off the cost of the subway repairs to drivers to try to both disincentivize people from driving into Manhattan, and also to make it so that the people who have less, in this case, people who ride the subway, are subsidized in a way by the more people who have cars who tend to have more money.
Yeah, that has to be a redistribution.
Calling from a 919 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, I'm Todd from Raleigh.
Todd from Raleigh, what's on your mind?
Hey, so first of all, so cool to talk to y'all. Big fan of the show. I was at the election show. I'm actually the one who gave you that Rangers jersey, Emma. So I hope it's
incredible. It's bad. Ever since then, their season fell apart. So let's hope for next year.
And Emma is a very superstitious person, so she definitely holds it against you.
I'm a Canes fan, so that's good for me.
See, I knew it was cursed. But also sorry about losing in the conference finals again.
It is what it is. But I'll anyway. So I found out recently I actually live kind of close to Derek Thompson of the Abundance book, and he spoke at a local bookstore. I took some notes as I was watching it. It was weird. He definitely wasn't as evasive as Ezra Klein was when he was on with Sam, I guess because he felt like he was in a more a crowd of like-minded people.
Right.
So he started his talk by just gushing over how great he thought Ezra Klein was, and how he had to like assure his wife he's not going to leave him for Ezra Klein. It's weird. And then he talks about how he's never been into politics. He went into like Dave Rubin mode. He's not into politics. He just has ideas, and he's really into ideas. He said the book isn't about, him declaring the direction for the Democratic Party. He just wants to ask questions.
Let me just add here that on the Lex Friedman show, Thompson explicitly said there is an internecine fight on the left for the future of the Democratic Party, and that the abundance agenda is in that fight against the left.
But are you capitalizing abundance, or is it a lowercase abundance that Ezra and Derek do, as opposed to the bad abundance that they have nothing to do with at all?
It's just a coincidence. Go ahead.
Well, he does immediately contradict himself. Is the weird thing. He goes into I just want to talk about ideas, and it's because I'm not actually that into politics. But then he sort of subtly admits that the book is being blown up because it got caught on by people with money and put him and Ezra Klein in front of politicians. And then he goes on to like a big Richie Torres love fest. And how, some people are saying he'll be the next governor of New York.
That's
and
hilarious.
So if you've got the next governor of New York on your side, I mean, that we're making.
When did he say this? When did he say this? Do you remember the date of the book?
This was in mid-April. I can send you all the.
I'm curious.
Send you all the link. I think it got recorded.
I'm curious about this because there's been an announcement of Delgado is primary challenging Hochul, and Richie Torres has been talking about jumping into the race. It seems, but I wonder what his angle would be. It would be an interesting abundance test case there, but they're kind of screwed if he's the best guy they can get from the Democratic Party to buy on, right? He'll say yes to anything.
Yeah. Jared Polis, yeah.
If it comes with a price tag, Richie Torres is all for it.
I will tell you, I saw this over the weekend. Torres was on a really small podcast, and he said, if Zoran wins the mayor race, he will not run for governor. If he loses, he will probably run.
Yeah, I think I saw that. I mean, and that was like a week or two ago. I think it would be interesting if we hold him to that. But it also shows the importance of this election, the way that this election is going to signify to people, arguably just in blue states, but I mean.
But this is a huge fight in blue states. We've seen decreased Democratic enthusiasm in blue states, and it's also being used as the front in the culture war by the right about the depravity here. That's how they're approaching it.
I would also argue that no one had a problem promoting Eric Adams as a national candidate.
Right.
Or I should say not no one, but none of the centrists in the Democratic Party had a problem promoting Eric Adams based upon his win in New York City. And we should say this was also in a presidential election, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so, no one had a problem at that time. But okay, be that as it may. Anything else?
Yeah, there was a few little weird things that it didn't make sense to me, and it showed the blatant sort of weird recycling of it's principled on nothing but anti-progressivism. He talked about how we built a lot during the New Deal, but said that also the building during the New Deal caused a lot of pollution, which is why we had the Clean Air Act. And if you were progressive who supports the New Deal and supports the Clean Air Act, you're a hypocrite and a, quote, scarcity progressive.
That is crazy.
They want to paint all the left as degrowth. It's very
Exactly.
evident that's the corner they'd rather be punching towards.
And that was a straw man that Ezra relied on heavily in his interview with Sam.
And then he went on to say that, environmentalist groups need to change their goals because the current issue for the environment is climate change. And it's not the environmental issues of old that the Clean Air Act addressed of making air and water clean. Because he said, and I quote, "No one has dirty air and water anymore." Which I think the people of Flint and in locals North Carolina, I think the people of Fayetteville would have something to say about it.
I mean, how about the people of Memphis who are currently being poisoned by Elon Musk? Like, all of this technology that's new is using...
No one who is middle to upper class has dirty air or water anymore.
Just get a Brita.
Yeah. Only last little bit I thought was interesting is he divided the current political, mainstream politics into four factions. He called it the Bernie left, the Hillary left, the Trump right, and the Bush-Romney right. He said Dems are still fighting for what the case to be made by the Democrats are, but Trump has taken over the right. And he thinks abundance can bring those Bush-Romney voters over to the Democrat Party.
Okay, I mean, look, that is...
nothing from Cheney.
Well, okay. In addition to not learning anything from Cheney, that is the explicit agenda of the so-called abundance movement as articulated by the Nicholson Institute and the Open AI donation, philanthropy, whatever it is, the $120 million. So, I mean, the thing I like about when Thompson goes on to talk about it is he's honest. Like, he's open about these things. He's the one who did say there's an internecine fight amongst the Democratic Party. What you just said also sort of contradicts what you said he said at the beginning of the talk. But it's interesting. I appreciate the call because it's timely, too. Thank you.
No problem. Love y'all.
Ezra Klein had a piece in the New York Times because that's where he gets the right. And
name dropped David Dayen's critique of his book, and then kind of
because Dayen had a big
Yes.
fight, and there's a lot of that, and I'm sure people are going to write in response to this, but there's a couple of things that's sort of fascinating about this. They move from the granular to the 15,000, 20,000 perspective, sort of like literally from sentence to sentence. And they move from the idea that this is a policy prescription. I don't see any contradiction between abundance and the goals of the left. Okay, so when you talk about the goals of the left, you're talking about policy. Right?
Should be.
I mean, the goal of the left is not just to present a messaging campaign.
Mm-hmm.
The goals of the left are policy. With the left that he's talking about, and even in the context of the Democratic Party, we're not talking that left, right? We're not talking like socialism. For him, he's talking about sort of like some combination of maybe social democracy coupled with the anti-monopoly Democrats. And they're not always aligned.
Right.
But when you say the goals, you're talking about policy, but there's also an element that in their argument that this is the way, like Derek Thompson said at that thing, we're going to convince people to join us. And this makes no sense based on just data, because their argument is that we don't have a government with state capacity. They cite moments where government can cut through this, like Shapiro in Pennsylvania, where incidentally, Kamala Harris lost. Right? Their argument is that local politicians, he starts off his piece by saying, like, the book is largely a critique of Democrats of governed in the places where they've held power, but the obvious targets of that critique, blue state governors like Gavin Newsom and Kathy Hochul, and top Obama and Biden officials have largely embraced it. So it's a critique of blue state governance, and the argument being that if we get it right there, it's going to resonate with Romney Republicans. But they also cite that Shapiro did this in Pennsylvania, and in the last election, the swing state, Democrats lost that election. Much of this is also about focused on affordable housing. We need affordable housing, but affordable housing is not a particular problem in Pennsylvania or in Michigan or in Wisconsin or in Arizona or Nevada. I mean, it's either a political program or it's, like how to get power, or it's not. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that there's anybody who is involved in policy who doesn't think that regulations that inhibit the government should be always questioned as to what the balanced net positive is. But it's as if they strawman it as if there's some power out there in the Democratic Party that is like purposefully doing this and has an agenda outside of that.
But okay, he's now said that it's been embraced by these blue state governors. So I don't understand what the problem is then. Now they embraced it. It's just very recent, I guess.
Yes. He writes like
hasn't taken effect yet.
He has to make it like, I support making it radically easier to form unions. I don't support making it harder to build anything and everything because of unions. And oil companies and billionaire real estate developers.
That's all the same.
So he has to say the union thing because Josh Barro last week said the problem was unions.
Talking about the groups.
He says, my view of power, because he says my friends and frenemies on the left don't think I have a concept of power. I think he's talking about Dayen, to be honest with you. My view of power is more classically liberal. In his book, Liberalism, The Life of an Idea, Edmund Fawcett describes it neatly. Human power was implacable. It could never be relied on to behave well. Whether political, economic, or social, superior power of some people over others tended inevitably to arbitrariness and domination unless resisted and checked. Now, I want you to sit with that for a moment because I happen to believe in this. I happen to believe, when I talk about, why I believe there should be a mixed economy. I don't like our mix right now, but a mixed economy is because I do think that like power is a dynamic. And anything unchecked and anything where there's a lack of competition is not going to bring you the best results, ultimately.
Did he just say he was a classical liberal?
Well, I don't think he's talking about
my view of power is more classically liberal. I'm just saying.
But to take this view, he writes, means power will be ill used by your friends as well as by your enemies, by your political opponents as well as by your neighbors. From this perspective, there are no safe reservoirs of power. See, I don't even think his concept of power in this power is a dynamic. And Fawcett, I believe, would also say this. It is relational. And the idea that maybe in some very narrow instances, somehow environmentalists or consumers or citizens have more power than moneyed interests whatever they may be. I just don't think that's the case, broadly speaking. And this is, he's eliding this by saying that power exists almost like in a vacuum, like not in relationship to other players in the political sphere.
It's dynamic also in the sense that power can increase. It's usually along the lines of money. So right now we have more wealth concentrated in the hands of a few people than we had decades prior to this. I would argue that that has increased the value, the power of capitalists and people with money. It's also coincided with the Citizens United decision and the explosion of dark money in our politics. That seems to be a very clear vision of power that if you could articulate, but he chooses to disperse his power analysis.
You sound monomaniacal right now. I think the fact that we're in a second...
Well, wait, let me get to that. He writes, corporations sometimes serve the national interest and sometimes they betray it. Now, let's be clear. Like, yes, he's saying a broken clock is right, can be right twice a day. The same is true for governments, for unions, churches, and for nonprofits. A lot is lost when you collapse the complex interests of politics into a simple morality play. Now, he's the one who's taken it into a moral universe. I don't think there's anything intrinsically bad or morally bad about corporations. I'm incorporated.
Right.
I'm incorporated. I've been incorporated for 35 years. The question is what interests do they represent? But by making it a moral, by him strawmanning that it's a morality thing and not simply a power thing. Nobody talks about the morality of, like, to the extent that people talk about the morality, it is a tactic. No genuine leftist thinks, Zephyr Teachout doesn't sit around going like, the real problem with corporations is that they're evil.
Yeah.
No.
The outcome.
The problem, it's that they have too much influence in pursuing their interests, which are misaligned with the rest of society's. And by pushing it into morality, that's where he gets to say in this article, and to me, and to apparently all his critics, your notion of politics is simplistic. And they go on to say that, like, I worry about a politics that often sees only problems of corporate and oligarchic control. This is really, really disingenuous to say that these academics, these writers only see one thing. Again, is so reductive and condescending. Now, it is true that if you want to go out with a message, a political message, it needs to be consistent and narrow and repeated over and over again.
Yep.
That is true to win.
Put a pin in that.
But wait,
Put a pin in that.
Are we talking politics or are we talking policy?
Yeah, that's the question.
Because the idea that somehow, in fact, you could even see it within the context of the Biden administration, there was an examination of regulation, and there was complaints about regulation, and it was used by the right. But when you look at, like, what inhibited Build Back Better as a political matter, it was when Joe Manchin got on the phone with a bunch of billionaires from No Labels, and in the summer of 2021, there's leaked audio of that, incidentally. And they all told him, hey, man, don't do this. That was after he said, this bill should be $6 trillion or $9 trillion, like bigger than Bernie said.
And he worries about the fight of concentrated corporate power being too totalizing of a theory of power that it has lost a clear view of policy. But why is he extricating policy from achieving political power? This is a right. He's
but
segmenting.
He sometimes does, and he sometimes doesn't.
Right, but that's the point. Is like, yeah. Is it the policy that is being sold to the American public that is going to sell abundance to everybody and is going to create electoral success? Is it that, or are you just saying that this is good governance? And the politics of it are different, because you asked him and you said that political movements are built on good villains, having a clear villain. And he basically says that he disagrees with that entire notion. So then in and of itself, if there's a variety of villains for abundance, then the policy should sell itself to people. But it's not. There's been polling that's shown this, that people across independents overwhelmingly back an anti-oligarchic agenda, and the Democratic Party base does. So he's on high saying my policy is better and you all should understand that, as opposed to making the argument that it's going to be a winning formula.
The anxiety, but I worry about a politics that so often only sees politics of corporate and oligarchic control. And it's great that Zoran's running his campaign, because he, again, has all these sorts of zoning reforms and single staircase reforms and that sort of stuff.
That must be purged at the altar of only corporations are evil.
It's setting my monomania absolutely insane right now. But actually what they're concerned about is people prioritizing problems of corporate and oligarchic control.
Exactly.
Yeah. And this is so top down. I think Kyle Kalinske said it best, was talking about this, how this doesn't have grassroots support. It's being imposed from the top via this book, and then the money that's behind some of these festivals that they're doing to support it. And you can even sense it in the way that Ezra frames its salience politically, where...
But he's only selling this. I mean, all of this is to sell it to the politicians.
Right, but the point is that, okay, so he's trying to he is separating the policy from the movement that it can create. What I think the left is saying is that is such a democratic elitist way to view how you are phrasing your political movement and presenting it to the American public. These professional Democrats are killing us because they don't have any faith that people can come to a conclusion about what the real problem is in this country on their own, and that they're already there, and that the Democratic Party should be responsive to it. They are creating some sort of barrier, more barriers between a party that is increasingly out of touch, elitist, staffed by consultants and lawyers and professional Democrats. And they're making that worse, where the grassroots is trying and banging at the door, and some people are paying attention. And if you have the abundance guys standing in between and saying, this is not good politics. Who are you to say?
And here's another thing that is also like just in the piece. Don't get me wrong. Corporations and billionaires do have too much power over the economy and the government. The tax code is deformed. I'm skipping around here. The campaign finance system designed for them. The markets in which corporate concentration raise prices and chokes off competition. All kinds of facially neutral processes are bent toward their enrichment. The big beautiful bill cuts $1 trillion in taxes for American making more than $500,000. But these are the problems Democrats already know how to see. What bedevils the party is the problems they refuse to see.
Hold on. Read that again.
These are the problems that Democrats already know how to see. But wait, what?
Wait, do you have a footnote? Where has that where has that been ever shown in actuality? What do you mean this is the problems that they already know how to see? And are Democratic officials or Democratic voters?
Okay. But even if you stipulate that they already see these problems and they are so geared towards addressing them, let's just stipulate that.
Sure.
What bedevils the party is the problems they refuse to see. And then he goes on to say, quote, Steve Tellis, who is a part of the Nicholson, populism only works if it's full spectrum populism. If it looks like you only deploy populism to attack the alternative governing coalition to yours, then people don't believe it. They don't believe you're really on their side. They think you're just a regular partisan. Well, what's fascinating about this is that that's exactly how you would describe corporations. Who else is demonizes corporations? Steve Bannon. Like, there's your full spectrum populism. It's how you address it and who you choose as the villain that defines what the solution is to the problem you are pointing out. Moneyed control and disempowerment by regular people can be orchestrated by various different groups. If you want to choose on it, it could be the Jews, or it could be just moneyed interests. But then he goes on to say that, like, essentially he's saying, like, there needs to be a sister soldier or something like that. Like, I don't understand. Like, this is the way the book is written too. There's these sort of bromides and ones that where you could sort of like, oh, I agree about we should have good policy. Good policy outcomes do dictate politics. But then as soon as like it gets to the edge, it pivots off to something else.
Right. It's lip service.
Really is the problem. Are we really just not ignoring the needs of like marginalized and under like capitalized, if you want to call it that, in our society, the working class in our society? I don't think so. And his argument is that like is exclusively like the thing that inhibits our politics is just these sort of random regulations that have been proposed by groups. Now, Thompson's, he doesn't point it out as this, although he walks you through it. It's really an anti-tax movement that inhibits government giving grants to the NIH in the way that is less risk averse. But he doesn't point it out at that. He says it's the same thing. He draws the parallel between the two explicitly.
Right. And it's just he basically says that these are the politics that are going to win for the Democrats. But it's also it's because it's so intelligent, because it like has a theory of power that's more dispersed. But there's no evidence that that's the case. I mean, honestly,
I don't know how
pre-abundance was the Harris campaign. Like there were some good things in it, but in her housing policy, but a lot of it was focused on supply side, not about decommodification, and about furthering our system of home ownership that is more geared towards upper middle class and upper class voters. These are like the suburban Republicans that abundance is supposed to target, and she got shellacked.
Yeah.
There's no evidence that he can provide for this having a good.
He does,
and I'm sorry that he is doing complete revisionist history about how Obama campaigned. I have a lot of issues with how Obama was president in terms of being the executive, but he ran even in 2012 when it looked like he could lose to Romney. He pivoted to attacking him on the 47% thing, on the rich guy car elevator thing. And in 2008, he ran to the left of Hillary Clinton on the war and also went and talked about Wall Street, not in the way that
that's why he ran against NAFTA.
Yes.
He had to send Ashton Goolsbee up to Canada in a secret mission to tell the Canadians, don't believe what Obama is saying. So, and so did Bill Clinton, ran on a brand of populism. Now, he says that they're the most successful Democratic presidents. But the irony is that the book is ostensibly about local, like state, municipal, blue state governance, and then cites Obama and Clinton as the most successful presidencies. Now, they may have been the most popular.
They may have provided the most meal tickets.
They may have been the most popular, but they did shit all for local Democratic politicians. Obama lost 1,000 seats in over the course of his 2 terms. And Bill Clinton lost the House for the first time in 30 some odd years. And Bill Clinton's popularity, incidentally, was very much,
Who's this? Matt Iglesias.
Matt Iglesias back in 2016. The whole Democratic Party is now a smoking pile of rubble. The down ballot party has withered, and Obama's policy legacy will be largely repealed.
Yeah. So I just, this is a more libertarian viewpoint in terms of governance, but I'm still stuck on the idea that this is, yeah, we have a different theory of how we would govern 100%. Although some of that stuff, I feel like with the zoning deregulation has been incorporated into campaigns like Mamdani's, and it was always there all along. But for this to first be some sort of movement, you have to win with the abundance agenda being on the ticket, which is like honestly something that they're selling. And there really isn't evidence to show that this would be an electoral success. Even the presidencies that governed in an abundancy, liberal, pro-free market way, Bill Clinton and Obama, these presidencies that he cited, they did not run on this stuff. So it can't be both. It can't both be something that's going to create, because some think tanks came up with it and some authors wrote some things down, that this completely top-down thing is going to galvanize voters to win elections. It can't be that when you look at how Obama and Clinton actually ran. And it can't be both things, is really my point.
It's motivated reasoning. Stephen Tellis described there as a political scientist at Johns Hopkins. I remember when Vox was hiring him to shit on Nancy McLean's Democracy in Chains book that went into Buchanan and the long libertarian billionaire conspiracy against your democracy. I think these people need to be treated with the utmost concern and caution. And look, maybe they just all happen to believe all these things that the Koch brothers and whoever are like, and maybe Nancy McLean's a big conspiracy theorist, but I would read that book and I'd read Marshall Steinbaum's take on it, because, yeah, I mean, it's just a political scientist, or is he a longtime libertarian think tank guy?
Kleinsman, I love you guys, but I'm so tired of the abundance BS. The only people who talk about it as much as you guys are paid to do so. Well, I mean, that's the point. I mean, because they're in the New York Times. They're in the Atlantic. Listen, I got a story here about what's happening with the Genius Act. And the main obstacle to it right now is that Thune opened it up to amendments, and that one of the Republican senators put in an amendment about a credit card provision that was a tag along that is slowing it down. But the longer the bill stays out there, and the more people talk about it, and the more they call their senators, and the more the senators feel some heat about it, the better chance it has of not passing. And so, you know, bear with us, because this is how these things, this is going to be much more important through 2026 and through 2028. But right now, this is where they're sort of tilling the ground. They're planting the seeds, and it is much easier to take out a seedling than it is a tree.
I wish I was around in 1987 to be on a radio show and try to end the DLC before it could, get Bill Clinton to the White House and, end big government.
1987.
87, that's what I said, yeah.
Okay. One last phone call. Calling from a 424 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Yo, is this Sam?
Yeah. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Oh, no way! Yo, can I get the horn? It's the first time caller over here.
What's your name?
Yo!
Where are you calling from?
Hey, yo, okay, so, ready?
I'm worried about you. Are you driving right now?
I'm sorry that I cannot provide you guys Stavros laughter. Yo, is it Stavros or Stavros? Fuck, his laughter is so funny.
Dude, are you driving?
Okay, yo.
Dude, are you driving?
Right, sorry if it's loud outside. My bad. I'm gonna go to a quiet place. But I have a question.
Yeah.
Yo, what is the worst thing that Karl Marx ever wrote? And he wrote a lot of bad things. All right. But what is like the worst thing that he ever wrote?
Probably the anti-Semitic letters about LaSalle. I think it is.
Okay, that's pretty close. That's pretty close. All right, you know what? Because there isn't a lot of time, I'm going to give this one away. And hopefully you guys have an idea of where the fuck I stand. Okay, so one of the worst things that Karl Marx ever wrote, and I beg you guys to look this up.
Say it.
Hold on. I was just jogging, so let me catch my breath. Fuck, hold on. Okay. The worst thing he ever wrote was he defamed and he also smeared the name of Simon Bolivar. Okay? And he did this calling him a black-faced tyrant when in fact Simon Bolivar is a pre-Marxist. Okay? There was no Marxism before Marx. There is an argument, okay? There is an argument that Simon Bolivar invented Marxism.
All right. Well,
now.
listen, dude, I appreciate you weighing in on this, and I think people will take some time to, think about it and work it out. But there it is. Simon Bolivar did not deserve the besmirching by Marx that he got.
Anti-Bolivarist revisionism.
Folks, that ends our call-in portion of the program.
I'm still going to go with the LaSalle correspondence, but...
Anthony Conwright. I wrote about black support for Cuomo and why black voters should vote for a socialist. Oh, is that the guy who wrote in The Nation? We spoke... Did he call in the other day?
His name was Brian. No.
Who was
different guy?
I don't know. I can't remember. Send us an email with the link to that. majorityreporters@gmail.com. Wayward leftist. God, I wish I could be this drunk early in the day, but he was jogging.
I think he's just excited.
Cuxhumer, I read Ezra's theory of power to mean simply that the revolution isn't coming. Money isn't getting disempowered anytime soon. The Democratic coalition better accrue some material achievements in their favor where they hold power if there's any hope in building that power. I agree that they need to legislate, but we saw some examples of disempowerment of money under the Biden administration. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau provided a lot of material support.
Yep. But it's not a linear thing, and it can't just be antitrust. We have to tax the hell out of these people.
No, I mean, of course. And I think he's probably for raising taxes too. I mean, the point isn't, and nobody, I got news for you. David Dayen is not calling for the revolution. Matt Stoller is not calling for the revolution. Zephyr Teachout is not calling for the revolution.
Lennon Dayen.
This is all stuff. This is all just sort of like Brandeisian. This has all existed in this country before.
FDR.
Teddy Roosevelt was a trust buster.
I do think there's a sense which this, broadly speaking, is a post-democratic political movement that doesn't really... The reason it's top-down is because they don't give a shit about the down.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly the point. That's what they're arguing. There's too much, too much input from the peeps. When they say the groups, they're saying the peeps.
In the Democratic Party, there's too much input from the grassroots, apparently, for the abundance people.
Q from Boston.
Unbelievable.
I graduated high school in 2016. My entire childhood education, literally every year, myself and classmates were told we were guinea pigs. Constant shifts in teaching practice and multiple rollouts of standardized testing and nothing to show for it. Exactly. And you know who was disempowered in that? The groups. The groups.
Over the group's head.
Foreskin friction. Mrs. Miller left Stephen because he saw a real Nazi in Elan, a non-Jewish guy who wasn't afraid to do a Nazi salute in a televised public address. Exactly. Didn't need a nino. What would you call that?
Nazi in name only.
A nano.
Nazi in name only.
Yes.
I do like that it's
you know?
that no one can deny that it was Hitler salutes, which they were trying to do for the first couple of weeks.
But like, it seems like we forgot, Richie Torres and Ro Khanna forgot about that because they see dollar signs.
In his defense, he was probably really high.
Okay, I need to read 2 more of these and get out of here because I've got an emergency. Clumsy Poet would be a good time to link Atlanta Cop City to all this mobilization of force against people who live in cities, and to link the cop cities being planned and about how cops are trained by Israel. Good point. And the final I am of the day. Chief Inspector Cuno. And for some reason, isn't Dr. Phil still embedded in these raids in LA just in case they need big guns? He is. Matt, Russ, Emma, great job today, folks. See you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light's shining bright. I guess somewhere the choice was made for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive